The Galactic Council Hall was designed to make visitors feel small. The ceiling stretched so high it disappeared into soft white light. Tall crystal pillars lined the circular chamber, each one representing a founding species of the council. Their surfaces reflected symbols of history, conquest, and ancient power. Humans had been given a pillar only 20 years ago, and it was smaller than most, placed near the outer ring. Commander Elias Ward stood beside it, hands behind his back, posture calm but alert. He wore a simple human diplomatic uniform, dark blue with no decorations. He had learned long ago that in the council, showing too much pride made others uncomfortable. Showing none at all made them nervous. Today, many of them were nervous. The session had started as a routine economic review, but it had not stayed that way. Elias had been asked a single question by a senior counselor from the Heshkari Combine, a species famous for long memory and longer grudges. The question was meant to corner him, to force him to accept a trade limitation that would quietly weaken human influence. Instead, Elias had answered honestly. He had presented verified data showing that several council members had been secretly manipulating transit tariffs while publicly condemning humanity for aggressive expansion. He did not accuse anyone directly. He did not raise his voice. He simply shared the numbers and cited council law. Silence followed. That silence still hung in the air now, thick and uncomfortable. Dozens of alien delegates sat in their assigned tiers, their expressions hidden behind masks, scales, or shifting light patterns. Elias did not meet their eyes. He knew better. The speaker of the council finally broke the quiet. "Commander Elias Ward," the speaker said, voice echoing softly, "your conduct has caused disruption." Elias inclined his head slightly. "That was not my intention." Transparency is a shared value of this council. Several delegates shifted. Transparency was a value they liked to talk about, not one they liked to experience. "The council has determined," the speaker continued, "that your actions, while technically lawful, have damaged interspecies trust." Elias did not react. He had expected this. The council rarely punished wrongdoing, they punished embarrassment. "As such," the speaker said, "you will accept corrective measures." A faint ripple of interest moved through the chamber. "Corrective measures?" Elias asked calmly. The speaker's tone became formal. "You will enter a binding interspecies marriage, as outlined under Article 17, subsection 4. Your union will serve as a symbol of reconciliation and personal accountability." The words landed softly, but their meaning was heavy. A marriage. Elias kept his face neutral. Inside, his thoughts moved quickly. Article 17 was old, rarely used, but legal. It allowed the council to enforce political unions under the excuse of cultural exchange. For most species, marriage carried deep social meaning. For humans, it was personal, private. "That was the point. You will be joined," the speaker continued, "to Salith of the Virene." A murmur passed through the chamber. Elias frowned slightly. "The Virene?" "Yes, the Virene were a minor species, quiet and largely ignored. They held no military power, no trade influence. Their representatives rarely spoke unless spoken to, and even then they spoke carefully. "Salith," the speaker added, "has been classified as non-combatant, non-strategic, and non-essential to Virene governance." There it was. The insult wrapped in formality. This was not reconciliation. This was exile with a smile. Elias looked toward the Virene seating area. For a moment he did not see her. Then he noticed a slender figure standing slightly behind the Virene delegate, dressed in pale, simple robes that did not reflect the light like the others. She did not look up. She did not look afraid. She simply waited. "Do I have the right to refuse?" Elias asked. The speaker's voice was smooth. "Refusal would indicate humanity's unwillingness to accept responsibility. Consequences would extend beyond you." Elias understood. Earth would pay the price. He bowed his head. "Then I accept." The murmur grew louder. Some delegates appeared pleased. Others watched with sharp interest. Punishing a human commander without weapons or war was elegant. The speaker nodded. "The union will be finalized within one standard cycle. You are dismissed." The light dimmed slightly as the session ended. Delegates rose, speaking quietly among themselves. Elias turned and walked toward the exit with steady steps. He did not look back. The preparation chamber assigned to the Union was smaller, quieter, and far less impressive than the council hall. Elias preferred it that way. He stood near a transparent wall that looked out over the orbital city, watching ships move in controlled patterns below. He heard soft footsteps behind him. "Commander Elias Ward." The voice was calm, clear, and carefully pronounced. He turned. Salith stood a few steps away, hands folded loosely in front of her. Up close, she was taller than he had expected, though still slender. Her skin was a muted silver gray, smooth and unmarked. Her eyes were dark, almost black, reflecting light rather than color. "I am Salith," she said, "designated partner under council order." Elias inclined his head. "I'm Elias. I suppose we're assigned to each other." "Yes," she replied. "That appears to be accurate." There was no resentment in her voice, no fear, no forced politeness. That surprised him. "I want to be clear," Elias said after a moment. "I did not ask for this, and I won't treat you as a punishment." Salith studied him quietly. Her gaze was steady, focused in a way that made him feel like she was seeing more than his face. "I did not believe you did," she said. "Your acceptance was calculated, not emotional." Elias raised an eyebrow. "That's a generous assumption." She tilted her head slightly. "It is an observation." Silence settled between them, not uncomfortable but thoughtful. "You're free to leave," Elias said finally. "If you want, I won't stop you." Salith's eyes shifted briefly toward the door, then back to him. "That is not how this works," she said, "nor is it how I operate." "Fair enough." She stepped closer, her movements smooth and quiet. "Commander Ward," she said, "the Council believes this union will weaken you." He gave a faint smile. "They usually believe that when they don't understand something." "Correct," she said. "They do not understand humans, nor do they understand the Virene." Elias studied her more closely now. There was something precise about the way she spoke, not stiff, controlled. "What do they not understand about you?" he asked. Salith paused just long enough for the silence to matter. "That we learned long ago how to survive by being overlooked," she said. The ceremony itself was brief, formal, and observed by representatives rather than crowds. Council law required witnesses, not celebration. Elias stood beside Salith as a translator read the binding terms in several languages. When it was done, a soft chime signaled completion. Just like that, they were married. No rings, no vows of affection, just agreement and obligation. Afterward, they were escorted to a diplomatic vessel assigned for Elias' continued service. In reality, it was a polite reassignment away from the central council sphere. The ship was medium-sized, human-designed but council-approved. Clean lines, functional spaces. Elias felt more at ease the moment he stepped aboard. Salith walked beside him, observing everything. "You are no longer stationed at the council," she said. "No," Elias replied. "I've been relocated." "This was expected," she said. He glanced at her. "You don't seem surprised by much." "Surprise is inefficient," Salith replied. He smiled slightly. "You'll fit right in with humans then?" She did not smile back, but there was a subtle shift in her posture, something that suggested amusement. As they moved through the corridors, Elias noticed something odd. Salith's gaze lingered briefly on corners, vents, panels, not with curiosity, but with assessment. She paused once, her head turning slightly. "Is something wrong?" Elias asked. "There is an imbalance in the environmental system," she said. "Minor, it will correct itself in 17 minutes. Elias frowned. "How do you know that?" She looked at him. "Pattern recognition." The ship's systems did, in fact, correct themselves exactly 17 minutes later. Elias did not comment. He simply made a note. Later that cycle, Elias sat in the ship's observation lounge, reviewing reports. Salith sat across from him, reading from a slim data tablet she had requested access to earlier. "You have an extensive record," she said. "So do you," Elias replied, "though yours is very thin." "Yes, that doesn't bother you?" "No," he studied her face. "You're listed as non-essential, no formal training, no strategic background." She looked up. "Correct. That's a lot of no for someone who seems very capable." Salith set the tablet aside. "Capability does not always require documentation." Elias leaned back. "Then what do you do, Salith?" "I observe," she said. "I adapt, I prevent outcomes that lead to harm." He considered that. "That sounds suspiciously like strategy." "It is closer to restraint," she replied. The ship's alert system chimed softly. Elias checked the display. "We're being rerouted." Salith stood instantly, moving to the viewport. "Not by error," she said. Elias looked at her sharply. "How do you know?" "Because the delay was intentional," she replied. 3 seconds too long for automated correction." Elias felt a slow chill. "Someone's testing us," he said. "Yes," Salith agreed. "You specifically." Elias folded his arms. "They don't waste time." They believe you are vulnerable now, she said. Is that accurate? He smiled faintly. They believe wrong things often. Salith turned to face him fully. Commander Ward, she said, do you intend to continue acting alone? He met her gaze. I've done pretty well so far. That is not what I asked. Silence stretched. Finally, Elias nodded once. No, I don't. Good, she said simply. Then we may proceed efficiently. He couldn't help it. He laughed quietly. Proceed with what? He asked. Salith's eyes flicked to the ship's data feed, already analyzing movement patterns. Survival, she said. Reputation repair. And the quiet dismantling of incorrect assumptions. Elias watched her work, fingers moving quickly, mind clearly several steps ahead. The council thought they had punished him. They had no idea what they had just given him. The diplomatic vessel moved quietly through open space, its engines humming in a steady rhythm. To most of the crew, this mission felt like a slow exile. To Elias Ward, it felt like a test that had only just begun. He stood in the command observation room, watching stars stretch into lines as the ship adjusted course. The reroute order still sat open on his console. It was legal, signed properly, and completely unnecessary. Someone was watching. Behind him, Salith stood with her hands folded behind her back. She had been silent for several minutes, which Elias had learned usually meant she was thinking deeply. They are not trying to stop you, she said at last. They are trying to measure you. Elias glanced at her. That's comforting. It should be, she replied. If they wished you removed, this ship would not be moving. True, he admitted. So what are they measuring? She stepped closer to the display, her eyes following the data streams. Your response time, your emotional stability. Whether isolation causes deviation. He let out a slow breath. So far, you are performing within expected human parameters, she said. Slightly above average, he smiled. I'll take that as a compliment. She did not respond, but her posture relaxed slightly, a change so small most humans would have missed it. Elias noticed anyway. The ship exited warp near a neutral trade corridor, one known for political tension rather than open conflict. Elias recognized the location immediately. They've sent us here on purpose, he said. Yes, Salith agreed. This corridor attracts disputes that require mediation but rarely resolution. Because everyone wants to win without being blamed, Elias said. Correct. The ship received an incoming transmission request. Elias accepted it. A multi-species council chamber appeared on the main screen. Representatives from 3 trading factions were already present, each one visibly irritated. They all paused when they saw Elias. Commander Ward, said the lead delegate, a tall being with translucent skin and shifting internal light. We were not informed you would be mediating. Elias inclined his head. I was not informed either. The delegate's light flickered. Your recent reassignment raises concerns about neutrality. Elias kept his tone calm. My personal circumstances do not affect my professional obligations. From the corner of his vision, he saw Salith subtly adjust her stance, shifting her weight just enough to be comfortable but also ready. Let us proceed, Elias said. The discussion began poorly and stayed that way. Each faction accused the others of trade manipulation. Data was presented, then challenged. Voices rose, though never crossed into open hostility. Elias listened carefully, asking few questions, letting patterns form. Salith stood behind him, silent. After nearly an hour, Elias raised one hand. May I ask a simple question? He said. Reluctantly, the delegates agreed. Which of you benefits most if this corridor remains unstable? Elias asked. Silence followed. Salith stepped forward before Elias could continue. Her voice was calm, evenly translated by the ship systems. Instability increases emergency transport fees, she said, which are controlled by a subsidiary shared by 2 of the 3 factions present. The delegates turned toward her. Who is this? One demanded. My partner, Elias said smoothly. She has a talent for noticing overlooked details. The meeting ended soon after with an agreement to suspend disputed fees pending further review. It was not a victory, but it was enough. When the screen went dark, Elias turned to Salith. You didn't have to step in, he said. You hesitated, she replied. For half a second, he frowned. You noticed that? Yes. Why intervene? Because hesitation invites escalation, she said, and because your silence would have been interpreted as weakness. Elias studied her. You're very sure of that? I am. The ship continued its patrol. Over the next several cycles, similar situations arose, disputes, reroutes, subtle challenges. Each time, Elias handled the diplomacy, and each time, Salith provided quiet support. She never took control, she never sought attention, but her influence was undeniable. She predicted negotiation failures before they happened. She identified false data streams with unsettling accuracy. She advised Elias on when to speak and when to wait. The crew noticed. At first, they whispered, then they started asking questions. Elias found himself defending Salith's presence more often than he expected. "She's not listed as a strategist," one officer said carefully. "Neither was I once," Elias replied. One evening, Elias found Salith alone in the ship's arboretum, standing among human-grown plants. She seemed particularly interested in a small tree, its leaves slowly adjusting to artificial light. "These plants adapt quickly," she said when he approached. "They have to," Elias replied. "They're far from home." She considered that. "So are you," he nodded. "Feels that way sometimes." There was a pause. "Why did you agree to the marriage?" she asked suddenly. He did not answer right away. "Because refusing would have hurt my people," he said finally, "and because running from pressure usually makes it worse." She studied his face. "You chose responsibility over comfort. That's one way to put it." "It is an uncommon choice," she said. He smiled slightly. "You sound like you approve." "I do." The ship's internal lights dimmed slightly as the artificial cycle shifted. "Why did you accept?" Elias asked. She looked back at the tree. "Because the alternative was silence." "That doesn't sound so bad. For some species," she said. "Silence is safety. For the Virine, silence became disappearance." Elias waited. "My people were once highly involved in conflict prevention," she continued. "We intervened early, quietly, too quietly." "What happened?" "Others learned to ignore us," she said. "Then they learned to erase us." Elias felt a weight settle in his chest. "I'm sorry." She turned to face him. "Do not be. Survival requires adaptation. We adapted." "To being underestimated?" "Yes." Elias met her gaze. "You're very good at it." "That is the danger," she said softly. The message arrived during what should have been a routine transit update. Priority level high, council seal verified. Elias opened it with a frown. The speaker's image appeared, expression neutral. "Commander Ward," the speaker said, "your performance has been noted." "I'm honored," Elias replied dryly. "The council has received concerns," the speaker continued, "that your assigned partner is exceeding her designated role." Elias' jaw tightened. "Exceeding how?" "Influencing outcomes," the speaker said, "advising strategy, altering negotiations." "She's not prohibited from thinking," Elias said evenly. "No," the speaker agreed. "But perception matters." Elias leaned forward. "Then perhaps the perception is the problem." The speaker's eyes narrowed slightly. "Be careful, Commander." The transmission ended. Elias turned to Salith, who had been listening quietly. "They're nervous," he said. "They should be," she replied. "You're officially on their radar now." "I was always on their radar," she said. "They simply forgot why." Elias folded his arms. "What happens next?" "They will attempt separation," she said, "professionally, socially, strategically. And if that doesn't work, they will attempt misdirection." Elias nodded slowly. "Then we stay visible." "Yes," she agreed. "Visibility with control." The next assignment came quickly. A cultural summit between emerging species, designed to look harmless but filled with political tension. Elias was invited as an observer only. Salith was not on the invitation list. "They're trying to sideline you," Elias said as he read the details. "They are trying to isolate you," Salith corrected. "Will you be okay staying aboard?" She met his gaze. "I will be present." He raised an eyebrow. "Present how?" She gestured to the data pad. "Observation does not require a seat." The summit hall was smaller than the council chamber, but no less complex. Elias took his assigned position at the back, watching interactions carefully. Salith's presence was felt through his earpiece, her voice low and steady. "Delegate on your left is delaying responses intentionally," she said. "He is waiting for alignment from the rear cluster." Elias nodded slightly. "Speaker is inexperienced," she continued. "Nervous. Likely to overcompensate. Meaning, he will favor confidence over accuracy." Elias waited. "Now," Salith said. Elias stepped forward, speaking calmly, asking a single clarifying question that redirected the discussion. The room shifted, momentum changed. By the end of the summit, Elias had helped guide the group toward a provisional agreement that surprised even the organizers. Whispers followed him as he left. Back aboard the ship, Elias exhaled slowly. "They're going to hate this," he said. "Yes," Salith replied. "But they will also respect it." "You sound sure." "Respect follows effectiveness," she said, "even when it is resented." Elias studied her. "You were never useless." "No," she agreed, "but usefulness is a label given by others." "Then what are you?" he asked. She considered the question carefully. "A reminder," she said, "that strength does not always announce itself." Elias smiled. "Humanity could learn from that." "So could the Council," she replied. The ship drifted onward through the stars, no longer unnoticed, no longer dismissed. And somewhere far away, ancient powers began to reconsider the quiet marriage they had thought meant nothing at all. The summons arrived without warning. It did not come through the usual diplomatic channels. Instead, it appeared as a sealed council directive, priority marked, non-negotiable. Elias read it twice before lowering the display. "They want me back," he said quietly. Salith stood near the viewport watching a cluster of distant stars. She did not turn right away. "Yes," she said, "they have finished observing from a distance." Elias exhaled slowly. "That was fast." "Not really," she replied. "You have exceeded their expectations." "That accelerates concern." He walked closer to her. "This doesn't feel like a promotion." "It is not," she said calmly. "It is a correction attempt." The directive ordered Elias to attend a high-level council mediation on the central station, involving several powerful factions. Officially, it was a routine diplomatic review. Unofficially, it was the kind of meeting designed to fail loudly and publicly. Elias knew the type well. "They want a mistake," he said. "Something they can point at." "Yes," Salith agreed. "Preferably one that suggests emotional compromise due to your marriage." Elias gave a humorless smile. "So I walk into a room full of people waiting for me to slip." She finally turned to face him. "That is correct." "Any advice?" he asked. "There is always advice," she said. "The question is whether you will enjoy following it." He chuckled softly. "I've learned not to ask if I'll enjoy it." The central station was as imposing as ever. Layers of platforms rotated slowly around a glowing core, traffic flowing in perfect patterns. The council clearly enjoyed reminding visitors where power lived. As Elias and Salith disembarked, they were met by an escort team. Polite, silent, watchful. Salith's presence had been approved at the last moment, framed as cultural accompaniment. Elias suspected that denial would have been more suspicious than permission. As they walked through the corridors, Elias felt the familiar weight of attention. Eyes followed them. Whispers passed through translation fields. "She's being noticed," he murmured. "Yes," Salith replied. "That was unavoidable." The chamber they entered was not the main council hall. It was smaller, older, and far more dangerous. This was where real decisions happened, away from ceremony. Delegates were already seated. Elias recognized most of them, veteran negotiators, political survivors, and traps. The speaker stood at the center, posture formal. "Commander Ward," the speaker said. "You and your partner are welcome." Elias inclined his head. "Honored as always." The speaker gestured toward two seats placed slightly apart from the main cluster. Not isolation, but separation. Salith noticed instantly. "They want to disrupt our coordination," she whispered. Elias nodded faintly. "Sit anyway." They did. The mediation began with controlled politeness. Trade disputes, border interpretations, shared infrastructure rights. Each topic was layered, complex, and deliberately vague. Elias listened carefully, answering only when addressed. Salith listened even more carefully. She tracked breathing changes, translation delays, eye movements, power fluctuations in the chamber's environmental systems. Each detail formed a quiet map in her mind. Then the first push came. A senior delegate leaned forward. "Commander Ward, given your recent reassignment, do you believe you still possess sufficient authority to represent humanity's interests here?" The question was simple. The implication was not. Elias met the delegate's gaze. "Authority is not assigned by location," he said. "It is recognized through conduct." A few delegates shifted, noted. Another voice followed quickly. "And yet your decisions have recently shown external influence." Elias did not respond right away. Salith spoke instead. "If you are referring to me," she said calmly, "then clarity may be helpful." Several heads turned. "I am not human," she continued. "Nor do I represent human policy. I provide perspective when asked, that is all." The delegate's eyes narrowed. "Your classification suggests otherwise." Classifications are summaries, Salith replied, not truths. The speaker raised a hand. Let us proceed without personal focus. But the damage was done. Attention had shifted. The trap was closing. As the discussion continued, contradictions began to surface. Not loudly, quietly. One faction claimed neutrality while pushing for exclusive access. Another cited shared data that did not align with independent records. Small things easily ignored. Salith leaned slightly toward Elias. They are rushing, she murmured. Pressure is increasing. They think they have momentum, Elias replied softly. They believe you are reacting, she said, not planning. Elias waited. Then at exactly the wrong moment for the council, Salith stood. I request permission to clarify a procedural point, she said. The speaker hesitated. This was not expected. Granted, the speaker said carefully. Salith moved to the central display. She did not project emotion, she did not accuse, she simply asked questions. May I confirm, she said, that emergency trade provisions were enacted under unanimous consent? Yes, replied one delegate, and that these provisions were temporary? Yes. And that their continuation requires renewal every 6 cycles? Yes, she nodded. Then may I ask why renewal records indicate only partial acknowledgement, yet enforcement continued? Silence fell. Salith did not stop. Additionally, she said, transport fee increases were justified by instability. However, instability reports originate from the same 2 monitoring arrays. The delegates shifted uncomfortably. Arrays managed by subsidiaries, she continued, with overlapping ownership. The speaker frowned. Where is this information sourced? From public records, Salith replied, linked through pattern analysis. Elias watched as realization spread across the chamber. No accusations, no raised voices, just facts placed gently like stones on a scale. A senior elder leaned forward slowly. His species was ancient, respected, and rarely surprised. These methods, he said, eyes fixed on Salith, are virine. Salith met his gaze without hesitation. Yes, she said. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Impossible, another delegate said. The virine abandoned such practices generations ago. Salith's voice remained calm. We abandoned visibility, not capability. The room felt different now, tighter, more focused. Elias finally spoke. It seems, he said evenly, that the issue before us is not authority or influence. It is accountability. The speaker hesitated. The trap had reversed direction. The mediation ended without resolution, but also without condemnation. That alone was a victory. As Elias and Salith exited the chamber, the silence around them was heavy, observant, calculating. Back aboard their ship, Elias leaned against the console, letting out a slow breath. Well, he said, that went better than expected. Salith nodded. They underestimated reaction speed. They won't do that again? No, she agreed. Now they will adapt. Elias studied her. You were incredible in there. She tilted her head slightly. I did what was required. You dismantled a council maneuver without making enemies, he said. That's not easy. It is easier when one has practiced for extinction, she replied quietly. He frowned. What do you mean? She hesitated, then spoke. When the virine realized we could not win by standing out, we learned to survive by shaping outcomes invisibly. We guided others away from collapse. When they noticed, it was already too late to stop. That sounds lonely, Elias said. It was, she replied. Which is why this partnership is unexpected, he smiled softly. Unexpected doesn't have to be bad. No, she said, it does not. The council's response was swift but not open. Instead of punishment, Elias received offers, advisory roles, committees. Invitations designed to dilute his focus. Salith received attention of a different kind, requests for consultation, historical inquiries, polite questions masking strategic interest. They want you separated, Elias said as they reviewed messages. Yes, Salith agreed. Individually manageable. And together, she looked at him. Disruptive, he nodded. Then we stay disruptive. She allowed herself a small, almost invisible smile. Another meeting followed days later. This one included observers from species long considered minor. Those who rarely spoke, they watched Salith closely. Afterward, one approached quietly. We did not know the virine still remembered, the being said. Salith inclined her head. We never forgot. Word spread, not loudly, not officially, but enough. Other obsolete species began adjusting their posture in council spaces, speaking slightly more, watching humans with new interest. Elias noticed. "You're changing the room," he told Salith one evening. She looked thoughtful. "You are changing the rules." "Together," he corrected. "Yes," she agreed. "Together." The speaker requested a private audience. Elias accepted. The chamber was empty except for the two of them. "You have complicated matters," the speaker said. "I tend to do that," Elias replied. "The council intended your marriage as limitation," the speaker continued. "It has become amplification." Elias met the speaker's gaze. "Then perhaps the intent was flawed." The speaker studied him. "What do you want, Commander?" Elias did not answer immediately. "Balance," he said finally. "Transparency, a council that does not punish honesty." "And your partner?" the speaker asked. Elias smiled faintly. "She stays," the speaker sighed. "I suspected you would say that." As they returned to their ship, Salith stood beside Elias at the viewport. "The council will not move against you now," she said. "Too many eyes." "And later?" "They will adapt again," she said. "But so will we." Elias looked at her. "You don't sound worried." "I am not," she replied. "For the first time in a very long time." He nodded. "Neither am I." The stars stretched ahead of them, vast and watching. The punishment had failed. The trap had closed on its creators. And the galaxy was beginning to understand that humanity's greatest strength was not force, but who they chose to stand beside. The change did not arrive with alarms or announcements. It arrived as silence. For the first time since Elias Ward had joined the Galactic Council, there were no sudden reroutes, no quiet challenges disguised as routine orders, no subtle attempts to separate him from Salith. Messages slowed. Invitations became careful. The Council was thinking. That, Elias knew, was more dangerous than action. He stood in the observation room of their ship, hands resting lightly on the railing, watching a pale blue star rotate slowly below them. Salith stood beside him, close enough that he could feel the calm steadiness of her presence. "They are waiting," she said. "Yes," Elias replied, "so are we." "They will not strike directly," she continued. "They cannot afford open conflict now." Elias smiled faintly. "Good. Humans are terrible at subtle wars." She looked at him. "That is not true." "No," he admitted, "but we prefer honesty." "That," she said, "is why you are unsettling." The ship received an incoming request. Council priority, full assembly. Elias closed his eyes briefly, then opened the channel. The speaker appeared, expression composed but strained. "Commander Ward," the speaker said, "the council requests your presence at a full session, effective immediately." Elias nodded. "We'll be there." "And your partner," the speaker added after a pause, "is invited." Salith's eyes flickered once. "That's new," Elias said. "Yes," the speaker replied. "Circumstances have evolved." The transmission ended. The council hall was full, not just with delegates, but with observers. Representatives from minor species, independent analysts, cultural historians. The chamber felt heavier, crowded with attention. Elias and Salith walked in together. This time, no one whispered. They took their place near humanity's pillar, which no longer seemed quite so small. The speaker waited until the chamber settled. "This session," the speaker announced, "addresses concerns regarding council governance, interspecies balance, and procedural integrity." Elias knew better. This was not about policy. It was about control. "We will begin," the speaker continued, "with a review of recent mediation outcomes involving Commander Ward." A large display activated, showing data summaries, disputes resolved, fees corrected, escalations prevented. The numbers spoke clearly. "You have been effective," the speaker said, "excessively so according to some." A murmur rippled through the hall. Elias remained still. "It has been suggested," the speaker continued, "that this effectiveness results not from human diplomacy alone, but from external influence." Salith felt the shift before Elias did. The room was turning toward her. Elias stepped forward slightly. "If the implication is that cooperation is a flaw, then the council may wish to revisit its founding principles." The speaker raised a hand. "We are not assigning blame." "No," Elias said calmly. "You are testing boundaries." The speaker's gaze sharpened. "And what do you believe those boundaries are?" Elias took a breath. This was the moment. "That no species should be punished for competence," he said, "and no partnership should be feared simply because it works." Silence followed. Then a voice rose from an unexpected place. An observer from a minor species, long ignored, stood. "We request permission to speak," the observer said. The speaker hesitated, then nodded. "Granted." The observer stepped forward. For cycles uncounted, our kind has been classified as obsolete. We were told our methods were outdated, inefficient. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. But under Commander Ward's mediation, the observer continued, we were heard. Under Salith of the Virene, our concerns were understood before we spoke them. Another observer stood. And we, they said, experienced the same. Another, and us. The chamber stirred. This was not planned. The speaker raised a hand. Order! But the change had already begun. A senior elder leaned forward slowly, eyes ancient and thoughtful. The council believed, the elder said, that by binding a human commander to a forgotten species, we would diminish both. The elder's gaze moved to Salith. Instead, the elder continued, we have reminded the galaxy why the Virene were once feared. Salith met the elder's gaze. Feared is not our preference. The elder inclined his head. Respected, then? Elias felt something settle into place. The speaker cleared their throat. The council must consider the implications of this partnership. Of course, Elias said. But consider them openly. The speaker hesitated. What are you proposing, Commander? Elias did not answer right away. He looked around the hall at the old powers, the quiet ones, the watching eyes. A recalibration, he said finally, of how we define strength. And how would you define it? The speaker asked. Elias gestured gently toward Salith. Strength is not volume, he said. It is not dominance. It is the ability to prevent collapse before it happens. Salith stepped forward. The Virene believed that if we worked quietly enough, she said, conflict would end. We were wrong. She paused. Silence without allies becomes erasure. The words carried through the hall. Elias continued. Humanity learned something similar on our own world. We tried isolation. We tried control. What worked was cooperation. A delegate scoffed softly. Idealism. Elias turned toward them. Survival. The hall grew quiet. The speaker conferred briefly with several elders through private channels. The wait felt long. Finally, the speaker looked up. The council recognizes, the speaker said slowly, that recent classifications may be outdated. That was as close to an apology as the council ever came. We propose, the speaker continued, the formation of a new advisory body. One focused on early conflict prevention, cross-species perspective, and procedural transparency. Eyes turned to Elias and Salith. You would lead it, the speaker said. Elias raised an eyebrow. Together, the speaker nodded. Together. A ripple moved through the chamber. Some approval, some concern, no outrage. Elias looked at Salith. She studied the room, the people, the weight of history pressing in. This role, she said carefully, would require honesty, even when it is uncomfortable. The speaker inclined their head. We are learning to accept discomfort, Salith nodded once. Then we accept, the chamber exhaled. The announcement spread quickly, not through official channels but through quiet messages, shared glances, careful hope. Minor species began requesting meetings. Not to demand power but to offer perspective, to participate. Humanity's position in the council shifted subtly, not louder, clearer. Elias and Salith worked constantly, often in silence, sometimes in debate. They disagreed, they adjusted, they learned each other's limits. And in doing so, they became something rare, trusted. One evening, after a long cycle of negotiations, Elias and Salith stood again at the observation window of their ship. The stars felt closer now. They didn't force us apart, Elias said. No, Salith replied. They realized separation weakens information flow, he smiled. You're rubbing off on me, she tilted her head. You were always adaptable, he considered that. So were you, she looked thoughtful. I spent much of my life making myself smaller. And now? Now, she said softly, I choose where to stand. He met her gaze. I'm glad it's here. She paused, then nodded. So am I, the council adjusted slowly. Old powers did not disappear, but they learned caution. Quiet species found space to speak. Conflicts were identified earlier, resolved sooner, not perfectly, but better. Humanity earned a new reputation, not conquerors, not rebels, partners. Elias was once asked by a visiting delegate what made humans so dangerous. He answered honestly. We listen, he said. And we don't decide who matters before we hear them. Salith heard that later and said nothing, but she stood a little closer to him after. Years later, historians would argue about the moment the galaxy changed. Some would point to treaties, others to economic shifts. A few would note a marriage that was meant to be punishment. They would say the council underestimated the wrong thing, not Salith's past, not Elias' skill, but humanity's habit of seeing value where others saw none, and choosing to stand beside it. The ship drifted onward, carrying not a commander and a forgotten bride, but two equals shaping a quieter, stronger future. Not through force, but through understanding, and that, the galaxy would learn, was the most dangerous strength of all.